I also had a kid I was raising from afar, and I lost custody of them at first when I really wasn't ready. I probably shouldn't have been in court, but I had to. To keep me together, the fact that I had to parent from far away was very helpful. Even though they aren't the death punishment, some sentences kill people on the inside. The worst thing that could be said to a mother was heard by Sharon Stone in a cold, suspicious courtroom during a custody fight. It's possible that your mum has been in adult movies, that question. But it wasn't aimed at her, it was at Roan, the little boy who used to be her everything. An exact 16th of a second movie scene from decades ago was now used as a reason to take away her motherhood. It's not because Sharon Stone didn't love her kid, but because people wouldn't accept a woman who used to be sexual and was brave enough to get back up after falling. She lost the kids, but not love. And it was that love that set her on a new path to become a mother, not just by title, but also by heart. Yes, you heard that right, she had 3 children. Sharon Stone thought the worst part of her life was over when she woke up after 9 days of having a brain bleed. She didn't realize that the pain in her body was just the start of another wound that were beating quietly and wouldn't stop. A cut in the heart, not the brain. Roan Joseph Bronstein was the name of the son she used to think would always be with her. During Sharon's worst years, Roan was her only source of light. Sharon and her then-husband, Phil Bronstein, chose to adopt a child after all of their attempts to get pregnant naturally failed. Sharon had endometriosis, and her immune system rejected every pregnancy. In 2000, Roan came into their lives out of the blue. He was a baby when Sharon held him in her arms. She put him to sleep every night with the trembling, soft voice of a mother who used to think she could never have kids. But that miracle fell apart just 3 years later when Sharon was getting better after a terrible stroke. Phil Bronstein, the guy who had promised to be there for her in sickness and trouble, asked for a divorce. He did more than that too. He asked to take Roan, the child they had brought home together, which was like a dream come true. Sharon wasn't the famous Hollywood star she used to be by that time. She was a weak woman who was shaking. Walking slowly down the hall of her own house, taking small steps. She couldn't remember what day it was, why she was writing her name wrong, or even read the case. She thought, at least I still have Roan, even though she was in that state. Then she knew she was going to lose even that last piece. The court hearings took place in a cruel setting. Sharon had to go to court before she was fully better, but Bronstein had a huge team of top-notch lawyers on her side. The things that were used against her weren't about her ability to have a child, but about her public image as a sex symbol who had been seen naked on TV 10 years before. Sharon became famous with the movie Basic Instinct, but now it was being used against her. Even worse, the court brought up the fact that Sharon was said to have asked a doctor to put Botox into her son's feet to make them smell better. Sharon denied right away that she was guilty of a strange accusation that had not been proven, but the law saw her as a possible threat to the child because she had a history of poor health, an unsuitable image, and unconventional parenting views. Then, the most painful blow came, in the form of an unkind question. Did you know that your mum has been in R-rated movies? Sharon wasn't supposed to answer that question. It was for Roan, an 8-year-old boy who didn't understand the difference between art and morality. All he knew was that everyone in the courtroom was looking at him, and his mother was crying. Sharon was told she wasn't fit to raise her son because of a 16th of a second scene that was shot in fiction and directed by someone else. Sharon didn't cry when the judge made his decision. Because she was too tired to fight, she stood there in quiet. The court said that Roan would live with Bronstein, and that Sharon, who had been holding him all day and night, could only visit him on set days and times with an adult. Sharon wrote in her book, "I didn't lose because I didn't love my child. I lost because I'm a woman, and because I used to look good, because I was brave enough to do things that most people don't think a mother should do." There wasn't a proper goodbye or a long hug. Roan left with his father the next day, but Sharon stayed in the empty house and sat on a wooden chair in the living room, looking at a picture of the family when Roan was 1 year old. She felt like a piece of her had been ripped away forever. No words can explain how painful it is for a mother to lose her child, not to death but to being judged. You feel like you're still living, but half of you has already died. It's a strange kind of loss. That day, Sharon turned into a mother who could only remember the good times. Her son grew up without her, and she missed hearing him call her every morning. She was no longer a part of his youth, and that pain, even though she couldn't see it, it burned inside her forever. Sharon Stone lost more than just her first child when she lost control of Roan. Being called mum every day made her feel bad. She used to be a movie star, but now she lives alone in an empty house with old pictures and unfinished memories all around her. Sharon could have let the pain bring her down, but she decided to rise. The judge had already made up her mind, but she could start over by having a child. Sharon took in little Laird Vaughan Stone in 2005 when he was just a baby. After a year, she took in Quinn Kelly Stone, the family's youngest boy. Sharon knew that no child could ever fill the hole left by Rowan, so neither of her children came along to save her. Lisa Sharon once said at a Mother's Day event, "I'm glad my kids chose me." It wasn't just a nice thing to say, it was real. When Laird and Quinn came into her life, everyone had turned their backs on Sharon. Her love for those two boys kept her from falling apart. She told People magazine that it had taken her years of hard work and many failures to adopt her second child. It wasn't until she held the baby in her arms that she felt like she could say, "This family is really starting over." Because of this, Sharon doesn't get to see movies as much as she used to, but she's at every parent-teacher conference, Quinn's flag football game, and school art show. People no longer call her a sex symbol, but she's still mum in the purest sense of the word. Sharon has said more than once that being a single mum to two boys made her tired, confused, and even question who she was. Can I handle this? She knew she didn't have to be perfect, just like when she fought to live through her stroke. She had to be there for her kids every day, at every meal, and whenever they needed someone to listen. Sharon said, "Hollywood doesn't put me first. That being said, I'm glad I put my family first." She's no longer the big deal when it comes to attention. However, she is the heart of a family that she put together from scratch. It used to be that Sharon Stone was one of the most famous women in Hollywood. But when the lights went out, her family broke up. She had to deal with a very different reality. She had to raise two kids by herself, without any help or a partner, and without any of the perks of fame. Sharon was still getting better after her stroke when she adopted her boys, Laird and Quinn. She had a bad memory, she still had a weak body. Her finances had taken a big hit, but she didn't wait until she was completely solid to have a child. She started at the worst time. There is no full-time nanny that Sharon hired. She didn't have a personal driver who could take her to and from school. Like any other single mum, she drove herself, made the meals, went to parent-teacher conferences, and planned school days and events. At times, she was getting treatment for long-lasting health problems while also taking care of a sick child. She didn't have fancy changing rooms or flexible hours like she did when she was a movie star, just the work she had to do every day to make sure there were meals, keep things organized, and do her best in the job she chose. Sharon told People magazine, "I love my kids like they're part of my body." It is amazing that Sharon made sure her kids were out of the public eye on purpose. There will be no red carpets or media visits. The three boys of hers live very normal lives: home, sports, school, and a mother who is always there for them. She made the rules clear. She shouldn't use her fame to give her kids extra treatment. In fact, Sharon turned down many offers to be on television shows or in commercials with her kids because she didn't want them to be a part of how people saw her. Sharon doesn't take on as many movie parts as she used to, but she still does small roles and ad deals to make money. But she spends most of her time being a mum. She always shows up to important events like graduations, birthday parties, and school plays. She also cheers from the sides at games. Instead of being the star of Hollywood movies, she is now the center of attention for her three sons. Sharon doesn't talk about sacrifices when she's asked about being a mother. She just says, "I lost everything once. I now have kids. That's enough, not a story. Not at all the dream mum." Sharon Stone decides to be honest with herself and deal with every problem head-on, just like many other women. The fact that she made that choice is what makes her trip so interesting. For many years, Sharon Stone lived with a hole in her heart called Rowan because she wasn't able to be with him, raise him, or see him grow up day by day. Sharon lost custody of Rowan, the boy she and Bronstein had adopted together in 2000 after her split from journalist Phil Bronstein in 2004. Since then, Rowan's father has raised him mostly. As for Sharon, she never stopped being a mother, but she couldn't be with her son during the most important years of his life. She missed being able to walk him to school every day and see all of his firsts. First swim lesson, first soccer game, and first crack in the voice. That was a time she could never get back. Also, that hurt and didn't have a name. But Sharon has always thought that some ties can't be broken, by law or a long way away. She once said, "I didn't win Rowan in court, but I got him back in love." She was right, and time showed it. As of 2019, when he turned 19, Rowan Bronstein went to court to formally change his name to include his mother's last name, from Rowan Joseph Bronstein to Stone, Rowan Joseph Bronstein. In the letter, Rowan made his reason very clear: I'd like to have both of my parents' last names. There wasn't a long speech, just one short line, but it was enough to break down every mistake, rumor, and gap that had grown over almost 20 years. His last name Stone wasn't just his mother's last name. It was a sign of respect, a choice, and a strong bond. It wasn't a party for Sharon. Being there for her son when he needed her was something she had always done. As Rowan got older, he started to show up with his mum more and more. Not as Sharon Stone's son, but as a real friend. He decided to become an actor. When Rowan made his first movie appearance in 2013, it was in the movie What About Love? But Sharon didn't post on Instagram until 2023 that Rowan had started working as a paid actor. She wrote with a picture of Rowan behind the scenes on a secret set, "Welcome to the family business, kiddo." Sharon was very proud of the project, but she didn't say much about it. At the movies, mother and son stood together for the first time in years. It was something they both loved. According to the South China Morning Post, Rowan is also very good at blowing glass. He hasn't just followed in his mother's footsteps, he has his own interests, skills, and a life that is becoming more and more independent. Rowan often stands next to Sharon at recent public events, not behind her. He does this like a friend and as an adult son, ready to defend his mother in front of the press. When a reporter asked Rowan about the naked scene in Basic Instinct, he just shook his head, stepped forward, and stopped the question with silence. It wasn't that his mother couldn't answer, but because he knew she had already answered with her whole life. Sharon always saw Rowan as her child, not a lost child or someone else's kid to care for. She already knows his name and knows him by heart. Rowan was never something that could be taken away and then returned. He's always been a part of me, no matter how close or far away we are. Because God could not be everywhere, he gave us mothers. Sharon Stone did more than play that part. She fought hard to keep it through all the hard times. A strong mother who never gave up, even when she was hurt, didn't understand or lost everything. The story of her and Rowan didn't end in court. It went on with love, waiting, and the hope that her son would understand one day. He did it. Rowan came back. Not because the law changed, but because the love of a mother never went away. But to fully understand that trip, we need to look at the other things Sharon has lost since she was a child, because that tough mother has been through a lot of terrible things in her life that not many people ever see. Sharon kept a terrible secret from her as a child. Her grandfather hurt her for a long time. She grew up scared because she was told she would die if she told anyone. She put on the exterior of a smart student and reader while her real life was falling apart. Even though her dad worked hard to support the family, he often lost his temper and hurt the kids. Sharon's childhood was full of long stretches of patience, silence, and a strong need to be trusted. She studied, worked, and dreamed of the stage lights as an adult to get away from the past. But women who didn't fit the Hollywood dream were never treated fairly. She was turned down many times because she wasn't soft or sexy enough, and when she finally became famous, it cost her body. Through a movie scene she hadn't even known would be shown that way, she was used, tricked, and turned into a marketing tool. When she was at the top of her game, she had a stroke, which was like getting sentenced out of the blue. After 9 days of brain bleeding, she could not do any of her simple tasks. She had to start over with everything: how to talk, write, remember things, and walk. During all of this, her bank accounts were wiped out, the public turned its back on her, her husband left, and she lost control of her child. There are no jobs, no cash, and no health insurance. At one point, this woman was on hundreds of magazine covers. Now she had to learn how to take care of herself in a quiet room by herself. But what might have been cruelest was how society reshaped her based on the very history it used to praise. A 1/16 of a second movie scene that made her famous was now used against her as a way to take away her power as a mother. The courts say the woman who once gave birth to a pure love for a young child is no longer fit to be a mother because she dared to be herself. It got even worse when the media wouldn't leave her alone. Sharon was called washed up and constantly compared to younger actresses. She was also crossed off the list for all lead roles because she wasn't drawing as many people to the theaters. She had to deal with the after effects of her stroke and the cold looks of people in her field who used to chant her name every night but now pretended she never existed. Phil Bronstein was the one person who had promised to love her through good times and bad, but he disappeared just as she needed him the most. After getting custody of Rowan, her ex-husband quietly got married again and stopped talking to the public.